As Colorado waits for the first dose of the vaccine to arrive, the restaurant industry is waiting for relief.
It just feels like they're waiting for us to go away quietly.
Colorado may be through the Thanksgiving surge, but nationwide, things are getting worse fast. Our country could break 300,000 deaths Monday.
Unfortunately, the way the numbers are going, we don't really see an end in sight.
And Mother Nature's not stopping for a pandemic. Winter weather forced testing sites to close today and could make an impact tomorrow.
We want to start with breaking election news. The Supreme Court has thrown out Texas versus Pennsylvania, the case Texas brought against 4 swing states trying to invalidate their votes.
So this decision just came down within the last half hour. Justices wrote that Texas does not have the legal standing to challenge the way another state conducts its elections. Now, President Trump has called this, quote, the big one in his team's long line of election fraud lawsuits, none of which have proven enough fraud to overturn election results.
7 more people died from the virus in Colorado today. Since Monday, our state averaged about 50 deaths per day due to COVID, by far the highest total of the pandemic.
And nearly 1,700 people are in the hospital tonight with the virus or virus symptoms, and that number actually slightly up from yesterday, but still lower than its peak last week. The FDA has not yet approved the Pfizer vaccine. We do expect that to happen sometime in the next 24 hours, especially since, as you know, yesterday the FDA panel recommended its approval. An FDA statement this morning said it was rapidly working toward issuance of an emergency use authorization.
The state's been preparing for this moment for months. They did a dry run earlier this week to make sure the pieces are in place to keep the vaccine cold on the long trip from the airport to your arm.
And today, Governor Polis said people will start receiving notifications, quote, soon about getting a vaccine. But he cautioned the vaccine will not be the immediate end of the coronavirus threat.
But when you get that vaccine, that means you're, 50 yards from the end. You can see it, right? And then what we don't want to do is that's when you do a big dance and use all your energy and then collapse and don't make it to the finish line. You got that vaccine, finish out the 50 yards.
Today, we learned which Colorado hospitals will get the first vaccine shipments. University of Colorado Hospital in Aurora will get the most Pfizer vaccines at 7,800. Children's Hospital of Colorado will get nearly 5,000 doses. UC Health, Poudre Valley Hospital, Denver Medical Center, St. Joseph Hospital, and Swedish Medical Center will get more than 1,000 doses. And the VA Eastern Colorado Healthcare System in Aurora will start giving doses to its healthcare workers and high-risk veterans once the vaccine is approved. The medical center was chosen for its ability to vaccinate a large number of people and store the vaccine at extremely cold temperatures.
Well, restaurant workers and owners watched the governor today, hoping they would get the green light to reopen dining rooms. That announcement never came. Now, owners built outdoor dining spaces to deal with the new regulations, but now the cold weather is freezing out the business, and workers are applying for unemployment in record numbers. Denver7's Liz Gilardi spoke with people just trying to survive our state's hardest hit industry.
It's discouraging to come in and say, well, there's nobody here.
Restaurant owners seem to miss one thing the most.
One of my favorite things has always been just sitting, watching, and listening to the room when it's busy. It's hard to be in here when it's so quiet.
As we head into the weekend and snow moved in across the Denver metro, Governor Jared Polis gave yet another update on the state's COVID-19 response. With every press conference, Brad Ritter, the owner of Carmine's on Penn, is watching, wondering what next. But Friday's update was about the vaccine.
We're all happy about that. But that's not going to keep us open next week.
There's a lot of buzz about the recent push to expand the 5-star exemption program that's underway in Mesa County. It allows businesses like restaurants to have indoor dining as long as they're 5-star certified, even if the county is level red on the state's dial. Ritter says he's ready if the governor opens up the program statewide.
Because I'm sure, like so many restaurants, we're already doing all the things that are part of it. But what we did was to make sure that our written protocols are there so that we can say, here, we're ready to go. We have everything.
Until then, this is the reality.
We have 6 tables that we're able to seat now, the largest being for 4 people. So we got excited the other night when we served 22 people for dinner.
Add in snow and it's even more challenging. Here at the Preservery, they're preparing for the weekend and the cold weather. The owner applied for a grant to install an awning, but it hasn't been approved yet.
This weekend, This weekend's, well, it's like a sucker punch in the stomach.
But if there's one thing we've seen from restaurants over the past few months, it's resiliency in the face of restrictions and even Mother Nature. Liz Gilardi, Denver7.
The U.S. Senate has passed a defense spending bill and a one-week government funding measure today. Now, without that, the government would have shut down.
This buys time for lawmakers to keep negotiating a long-term funding measure. Democrats and Republicans both say they want to pass a funding bill at the same time as a stimulus relief bill. However, we've been covering these negotiations since football season started, and both sides continue to get hung up on topics like stimulus checks and state funding.
And without a deal, enhanced unemployment benefits will go away at the end of this year. The eviction ban will be lifted at the same time. Student loan payments began due in February. Well, today, a bipartisan group of Western governors, including Governor Polis, wrote to the Senate to ask them to pass a stimulus package. Polis said, quote, "We need Washington to provide a relief package that is fair and helps us respond swiftly."
Nationwide, there is one person dying from coronavirus every 30 seconds. Hospitals are running out of ICU space and leaning heavily on their staff. Some California doctors report working 20-hour days for weeks at a time.
12 days ago, everything was under control. We went from a very manageable census to, getting overwhelmed.
This week in the U.S., there were more deaths, cases, and people hospitalized with COVID-19 than at any other point since the pandemic began. And the vaccine won't make an immediate dent in those numbers because of how long it takes for the vaccine to be effective. Denver7 is committed to making sure you have the information you need to make your decisions for you and your family. And that's why we're hosting a town hall Tuesday night at 6:30. The governor will join us as well as top health leaders to answer your questions about the vaccine. Email us yours, 360@thedenverchannel.com. We read every submission with an open mind.
A winter weather advisory will close the COVID testing site at the Jefferson County Fairgrounds tomorrow. Now, weather closed several sites today. Most others are supposed to be open tomorrow. If weather does have any impact on their hours, I promise we'll let you know.
Katie LaSalle is tracking winter weather for us tonight. Hi, Katie. Good evening.
Good evening to you guys. Happy Friday, everyone. Finally, we saw a little bit of snow move back into Colorado. It has been a cold and very blustery day in spots. You can see Civic Center Park this evening under a mostly cloudy sky. A lot of the snow has tapered off for us here in the Denver area. But again, we have a second round of moisture moving in through the day tomorrow. So temperatures will be really cold overnight. Will drop down to the teens here in Denver. A chilly weekend ahead, only in the 20s for highs tomorrow. So definitely bundle up if you're planning to be anywhere across the state. Temperatures right now, we're in the low 20s from Denver up through Fort Collins and Greeley, only 16 in Leadville with teens expected overnight tonight. Now, as I mentioned, we'll get a little bit of a break in the snowfall tonight into tomorrow. You can see we'll start off mostly cloudy and dry across the state, and then a second round of snow will move into the mountains and then impact the Front Range and Plains. We'll talk more about snow totals, exactly what you can expect for your neighborhood. Still to come.
All right, thank you, Katie. The city of Aurora has agreed to pay $285,000 to settle a police brutality lawsuit.
The victim says he was thrown to the ground during an arrest for a noise violation. Denver7's Lance Hernandez reports.
No, venga aquí. Venga aquí.
The ACLU says Jamie Torres was compliant with police orders, but hesitated because he doesn't understand English. He was on the phone asking his wife to translate.
And that delay, the police interpreted as defiance of their order.
Come here or you're going to jail. This is a lawful order to come here.
Torres claims when he exited his own garage, he was immediately taken to the ground, his arm twisted in a painful lock. These are the bruises left after his face made contact with the pavement. Torres was charged with a noise violation, resisting arrest, and failure to obey a lawful order. Only the noise violation held up in court.
Why are you racist? What's the racist?
The ACLU then filed a federal lawsuit against Aurora for warrantless arrest, excessive force, and brutality. One piece of evidence of Aurora's liability, the municipal judge holding up a photo of Torres's battered face.
And saying, this is what happens when you don't pay attention to what police officers tell you to do, even though he had just been acquitted of failing to obey a lawful order.
Aurora settled, but didn't admit liability. The city says APD remains committed to ongoing reviews of its practices and procedures to offer the best service to our residents And new police chief Vanessa Wilson has undertaken a plan to restore public trust in the department. Mark Silverstein says that's going to take a while. He says racially biased policing seems to be embedded in the department.
In case after case after case, Aurora police unnecessarily escalate tension, fear, and ultimately violence when interacting with people of color.
Lance Hernandez, Denver7.
Coming up, why the air we breathe is getting cleaner and how the pandemic's playing a role. Plus, why Christmas tree farms are running short on supply.
And the best protection from holiday shopping scams might just be Google.
Just a few minutes of research and verification can help you as a consumer save hundreds of dollars